because I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone. Let's look at it. We've got a list. Tap my phone, tap Lindsey Graham's phone, tap Marsha Blackburn's phone, tap 5 other phones of United States senators. Gee, it sure looks like targeting political opponents to me, and yet I haven't heard a word from that side of the dais about any concern whatsoever. We've got nothing but concerns today, but no concern at all for a Justice Department that is tapping the phone.
Frost, the second document is a list of Republican groups and people that Arctic Frost targeted, including Charlie Kirk's group, Turning Point USA. These documents show the political weaponization of the Biden administration against Republicans. Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, good to see you. Welcome. I've been listening closely in this hearing, and I've heard over and over from my Democrat colleagues concerns about targeting political enemies, and they've accused you of all manner of things and the current president. I've also heard them said, and I just wrote it down because I want to be sure I heard it correctly. I've heard them say that Joe Biden never targeted his political enemies. Joe Biden never directed his attorney general to target his political opponents. That's interesting, because I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone. Let's look at it. We've got a list. Tap my phone, tap Lindsey Graham's phone, tap Marsha Blackburn's phone, tap 5 other phones of United States senators. Gee, it sure looks like targeting political opponents to me, and yet I haven't heard a word from that side of the dais about any concern whatsoever. We've got nothing but concerns today, but no concern at all for a Justice Department that is tapping the phones of sitting United States senators because who knows why. They don't like them. They're members of the opposition party. They're Republicans. They're conservatives. You've seen this document, Attorney General Bondi. Well, what was going on here? Who ordered this? Who ordered the tapping of the phones of United States senators?
Senator Hawley, I cannot discuss the details of that right now for very good reason.
You're going to do a thorough investigation into this, I trust. Is that correct?
We will be looking at all aspects of this, and I have talked to Director Patel at length about
And
this.
you're going to figure out who was involved in this, who signed off on it, who knew about it. You're going to get to the bottom of all of it. Is it correct?
Yes, and I've spoken to Director Patel about it, and he is committed to doing this.
Well, I can tell you, we already know many of the details. We already know that this was ordered by the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, who reported directly to the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland. And we know that Jack Smith was on his witch hunt because he was directed to do so by the President of the United States, Joe Biden. Let's just remember. Let's take a walk down memory lane. April 2nd, 2022, the New York Times. Garland faces growing pressure. The Times says as recently as late last year, that would have been 2021, Mr. Biden confided to his inner circle he believed former President Trump was a threat to democracy and should be prosecuted. It goes on to say that the Biden was frustrated with Garland and wanted him to take decisive action against Trump. Here's what we're talking about. Trump, of course, was a private citizen at the time. So he appoints his own hitman, Jack Smith, who goes after the president, former president, who goes after members of this body. You know, the thing about it, though, that really strikes me is that it didn't stop with members of the United States Senate. Did it, Attorney General Bondi? It didn't stop here at all. I mean, just as egregious, maybe more so than tapping the phones of U.S. senators, is this memo that I know you've seen before. Let's just look at it again. This is an FBI memo from the same time period, I might add, from the same time period, in which the Federal Bureau of Investigation attempts to recruit informants into Catholic parishes in this country. So here you have an administration that is activating the FBI against its political opponents and tapping the phones of United States senators. Can I just say that again for my colleagues, for the benefit of my colleagues on the other side of the dais? Tapping the phones of United States senators. This isn't hypothetical. This isn't maybe what will you do in the future. This isn't, oh, gee, can you imagine a situation? This happened. This happened. And this happened, the targeting of Catholics in this country because Joe Biden and his FBI didn't like Catholics who went to a certain kind of mass. I mean, good God in heaven, what is happening to this country? What happened under Joe Biden? Or then how about this, the infamous school board memo, where Merrick Garland, at the direction of the White House, issued a memo activating the FBI's counterterrorism division against parents who attended school board meetings and had the temerity to ask what their kids were being taught. And some of those parents were treated like this. Let's just remember. Let's remember how parents were treated. Treated like this man. That's right. A parent at a school board meeting, I think in Virginia, who was drug out of the school board meeting. He's bloodied there. You can see it. And what was the response of Joe Biden's DOJ and FBI? It was to issue a memorandum saying that people like this ought to be investigated by the counterterrorism unit. And unbelievably, they were. They were. Or how about this? Let's remember Mark Houck and the pro-lifers who were prosecuted for what? For going to a clinic, an abortion clinic, and praying on a sidewalk outside the abortion clinic. This is Mark Houck and his beautiful family at Mass. This man, at the direction of Joe Biden's FBI, this man had an FBI SWAT team come to his door in the early morning hours with his beautiful children there, terrorizing them with weapons drawn. He was then arrested and prosecuted. Unfortunately, a jury acquitted him. This is what was happening under Joe Biden. United States senators spied upon. Former presidents, the political opponents of the president at the time, targeted, prosecuted. Pro-lifers, targeted, prosecuted. Catholics, targeted, prosecuted. 92 conservative organizations put under surveillance, targeted for potential prosecution. Gee, I don't know. Would you call that an example of weaponization, Attorney General Bondi? Do you think that's a fair characterization?
Senator Hawley, that is the ultimate weaponization. And weaponization under Donald Trump has ended. It has ended. Harmeet Dillon is running our civil rights unit, and she is doing an incredible job. No longer will parents be targeted. No longer will parents who care about whether their elementary school children have to read a transgender book be targeted and told they cannot have any say in their child's education. That has ended under this administration. People can worship freely, whether they're Catholics at synagogues or Muslims. Everyone can worship freely. That was the ultimate weaponization. They were targeting Catholics. No longer. They have been targeting so many American citizens throughout this country. And Senator Hawley, you have been a champion of this, and thank you for being a champion of that. But under Donald Trump's watch, it has ended.
You know, I think about some of the abuses of power in this country's history, and there's been, sadly, a lot of them by members of the executive branch over the years, whether it's Watergate, whether it's what J. Edgar Hoover did in his time at the FBI, spying on many public figures, RFK, MLK, JFK, you name it. And I just have to say, what we now know happened in the last 4 years under this administration surpasses all of that. It surpasses all of it, not just for the interference in the legislative branch, not just for the blatant disregard for the separation of powers, not just for the blatant disregard for the First Amendment, but for the targeting of ordinary American citizens who can't afford lawyers, who can't afford to mount a defense, who when the FBI knocks at their door or comes with the SWAT team, they don't know what to do. It is absolutely a disgrace. It is a stain on the history of this country and on the conscience of this country, what this administration did in the last 4 years. So here's what I think needs to happen. Madam Attorney General, I think we need a special prosecutor to be appointed whose sole responsibility will be to get to the bottom of what has happened in every instance that I have just named. I think we need to know exactly who approved the wiretaps on United States senators, who knew about it, what agents were involved at DOJ or the FBI. I think we need to know exactly who signed off on the Catholic memo, the spying memo, who was involved with it, how far did it go. I think we need to know exactly who authorized the prosecution of Mark Houck, who terrorized pro-lifers and tried to intimidate them. I think we need to know. That, Mr. Chairman, this committee needs to do oversight hearings. We need to have thorough hearings into what has happened these last 4 years and this abuse that has now just been uncovered, because we have to ensure that it stops. As you just said, Attorney General Bondi, we have to ensure that it stops. This chapter in American history needs to come to a close, never to be opened again. The use of the most powerful law enforcement bodies in the world against ordinary citizens and political opponents must end once and for all. And we have a chance to do it, and it needs to be done with a thorough investigation, full transparency. And those who violated laws need to be prosecuted. I thank you for what you're doing, Attorney General Bondi. I hope that you will launch a thorough investigation. I hope you'll appoint a special prosecutor. Mr. Chairman, I hope we'll hold hearings. And with that, I yield.
Yeah. Before I call on Blumenthal, I want to, without objection, introduce into the record a document that General Bondi helped to declassify. The document is array FBI announcement.
In the final minutes of this hearing, the room fell silent as Senator Josh Hawley delivered the moment that will echo far beyond these walls. His voice, sharpened by disbelief and a deep sense of violation, cut through the chamber when he said the words that no democracy should ever hear. I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone, tapped Lindsey Graham's phone, tapped Marsha Blackburn's phone, tapped 5 other phones of United States senators. It wasn't an accusation spoken in metaphor or speculation. It wasn't a prediction of what might happen someday. It was a declaration of what had happened in real time, under the authority of an administration entrusted with defending the Constitution. And as Hawley laid out the list of names, each one a sitting member of the United States Senate, the gravity of the moment settled in like a weight on the national conscience. This wasn't the distant history of Watergate. This wasn't the shadowed legacy of J. Edgar Hoover. This wasn't a rumor whispered in the dark. This was now. And in that now, Senator Hawley asked a question that should chill every American who believes in equal justice under the law. Who ordered the tapping of the phones of United States senators? Pam Bondi sat before him, cautious, guarded, unable or unwilling to lay out the details. But the senator pressed forward, tracing the contours of a story that has haunted the political landscape for years. A Justice Department operating under the direction of the executive branch, using its immense power to target not criminals, not spies, but political opponents. He walked through the timeline. He named the officials. He cited the reporting. He recalled the pressure campaign in the early years, the president expressing frustration that his attorney general was not acting decisively enough. And then came the names, the documents, the revelations of what he called the ultimate weaponization. He pointed to the FBI memo targeting Catholics attending certain masses. He pointed to the school board memo that framed parents as potential threats for speaking up about their children's education. He pointed to the cases where citizens without wealth, without influence, without the protection of power, found themselves face to face with the immense machinery of the federal government. This was not delivered with theatrics. This was not a moment of political stagecraft. It was a reckoning with the idea that for 4 years, the instruments of justice had been pointed inward, toward senators, toward religious communities, toward parents, toward those who dared to speak. And in that reckoning, Hawley drew a line through American history, from Watergate to Hoover's campaigns to the present moment. He said that what happened here didn't just echo those past abuses, it surpassed them in scale, surpassed them in reach, surpassed them in the brazenness of turning the most powerful law enforcement institutions in existence against the very people those institutions are meant to protect. And as Bondi spoke, promising investigations, promising change, promising that this chapter would not be repeated, Hawley's tone shifted. It became something else, something heavier, something more reflective. He spoke not as a partisan combatant, but as a witness to an era that, in his view, had tested the very limits of constitutional government. He spoke of citizens without the means to fight back, citizens who faced the weight of federal authority alone. He spoke of faith communities, parents, and senators, each touched by decisions made in secret, carried out in silence, justified by power rather than principle. And then he spoke of what must come next. A special prosecutor, a full investigation, a complete accounting of who ordered what, who knew what, and who acted. A long, unbroken chain of responsibility traced from the agents on the ground all the way to the highest offices in the land. He spoke of oversight hearings, real ones, not symbolic, where every detail would be laid bare. He spoke of transparency as not just an ideal, but an obligation. He spoke of accountability as the only path forward. Because, as he said, this chapter in American history has to close, and it must never be opened again. This hearing was not just another exchange in the ongoing political battles of the day. It was a window into something deeper, a question of how far the government can go before it loses its anchor, its restraint, its moral compass. And it asked something of each one of us. It asked whether we believe that those in power should answer for what they do behind closed doors. It asked whether we accept a system where the rule of law bends for some and bears down on others. It asked whether we remain a nation where disagreement is not a crime and opposition is not a threat. Because the strength of America has never been found in silence. It has been found in accountability, in truth, in demanding more from those who hold authority. As the gavel fell and the next senator prepared to speak, the questions Hawley raised did not fade. They lingered, sharp, undeniable, waiting for answers that the American people deserved to hear. And in that space, between what is known and what must be uncovered, lies the responsibility of every citizen who believes in the promise of this country. This moment is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a demand for transparency, for integrity, for the restoration of trust. And that demand cannot be whispered. It must be spoken clearly, boldly, relentlessly. If you believe in that mission, if you believe that power must answer to the people, if you believe that truth still matters in the United States of America, then stand with us, share this message, and subscribe to Liberty Report USA. Because the fight for accountability and for the soul of this republic is only just beginning.